Hello and welcome to Fin Business. Today I'm in conversation with Sachin Seth from Ernst & Young and I'm going to take his perspective on the current state of Indian fintechs. Sachin, welcome on the show.
Thank you, Amol. Thank you so much.
Great. To start with, we have seen hundreds of fintechs increasing every year in Indian market now. Once upon a time, we used to talk about the IT industry and financial industry's growth story, but today we are also talking about the growth story of fintech industries. So since thousands of fintechs are already operating in India and many financial institutions, whether it's insurance, NBFC, banks are adopting these fintechs, I would like to learn from you what kind of solutions these financial institutions are actually absorbing and adopting from these fintechs.
Sure, Amol. I think that's a hot topic and love to have dialogue on that. So if you look at it, I think probably 5 or 6 years back, we did have some smaller companies providing solutions to banks, NBFCs, etc., and also directly reaching out to customers with the differentiated offerings. Right. But I think that point of time, nobody had thought that it will emerge as a full-fledged industry. Right. But I think the speed at which things have happened is very fast. And I would say before I go into the depth of providing more inputs on how the fintechs are emerging, I also want to share my fear that actually it's getting overhyped at some point of time, or it's becoming a glorified to have a fintech and everybody is being sort of bucketed in the same manner. So, if you ask me, my fintech understanding is that there are certain fintechs who have really improved the whole customer value chain or the life cycle, working with NBFCs and the banks and the other financial institutions, and those are the ones who have really added value.
Right.
Whether it's around KYC, it's around underwriting, it's around understanding customer better, it's around contextual marketing. Yes. But then there are many of them who have tried to actually become, let's say, substitute to the bank or NBFC. Right. Or microfinance company. I think there the challenge is a bit more because obviously they have gained the initial momentum, but whether they are able to build a book, whether they are able to convert themselves into a truly fintech organization which can serve the customer end to end, I think that's a question mark yet to be answered. So there are few of them operating in that space and they are trying to emerge and accelerate. But I would say where the collaboration between the legacy and the fintech is there, it's more successful, it's proven. But where there's an isolation, I think it's a way to go.
Keeping this in mind, keeping these things in mind that most of the fintechs are already mature now, though the industry is very new, but many fintechs are already mature and they're already tied up with traditional banks.
Yeah.
Do you think that the product which fintechs have offered and the collaboration and the integration which is between the financial institutions and fintechs has been really successful and it will actually help fintechs to reach to a next level?
So again, if I look at it, I break up the story in two parts.
Yes, please.
One part is the so-called fintechs and the successful ones. While I don't want to name them, but yeah, they are more like sourcing aggregators. And they've done a phenomenal job of getting customer enabled, educate the customer, how do you come on board digitally and how do you get service digitally, right? Absolutely. They've done a great job, but they are practically not doing anything more than basically getting the aggregation done and providing a single sort of channel to basically the bank or a NBFC for the leads, right? Which banks or NBFCs otherwise would have found it difficult to do it themselves, right? But at the same time, if you look at the fintechs who are providing as a part of the value chain, where there's truly a solution being offered, whether it's a chatbot or artificial intelligence or a credit underwriting or something which is related to collections or anything else. So in these two spaces, I would say the aggregation story, probably it is more of opportunistic game. I really don't know how it is going to be last. Okay, at some point of time, customers become mature and they start going to the service provider directly instead of going through aggregators. But as far as the true solutions which are being provided as a part of the value chain, I think those are the ones which are here to stay. And I think they will become eventually if they won't be called a fintech probably a few years later, they would become actually a full-fledged intellectual property-based solutions company.
True. So yes, there are few fresh, fintechs whom perhaps we cannot judge and it's very difficult to say how far they will go. True. But there are many fintechs which have already been matured and they're at a stage where they have been already collaborated with traditional banks. Looking at this graph, what do you think? How many fintechs will be successful, or how many fintechs will be there in next 2 to 3 years?
Difficult to give that number because if you count today also, probably there are 1,000 companies plus or more than that actually are in the space of financial technology, and many of them have rebranded themselves as fintech. They were already there, but I would say definitely there is a space for say 7 to 8 companies or 10 companies in the sourcing space or a customer acquisition space. I'm talking about across NBFC, banking, wealth management and insurance. And at least there is a space for say 20 to 25 companies in the value chain in which it is provided. Now, obviously when we say it's a basket of 30, 35, 40 companies, probably with give and take 20%, I think that would be the right sort of a basket of companies who would turn out to be really, make it, who will make it a business out of it, right? Obviously, there will be a couple of hundred more who would keep creating differentiated solutions created by these companies in a slightly different manner and would try to always, come and challenge them, right? So, I would say 3 to 4 years from now, 50 to 60 companies I see as mature, well-known names, well accepted, and I think 15, 20 are already there, but there will always be 1,000. So, those who don't survive, there will be new ones to come on. Yeah. So, this will always be there.
When we say that they will be really mature and they will be really big, I have a very, interesting question. How big they will be? Because, there are global bankers who said that, fintechs are as big as banks today. So, going ahead, specifically in India, do you think that the fintechs will reach to that level?
When I said this number of say 30, 40, 50 or whatever it is, that's basically in Indian context. Now, if I give you an example from other industry, which we keep talking about, let's say transportation or travel industry, Uber is the legend, right? They are just coming out with IPO and $100 billion, $20 billion is the approximate valuation. If you look at Airbnb, if you look at any other similar company, now they are born in last 5 to 10 years, right? Now, definitely in the fintech space also, there would be companies who would create valuation, who would create an impact. But whether they would do in the same way what the banks did or what the other NBFCs did may not be that. So there would be so if you look at from profitability perspective, size of business perspective, probably it will be a transaction model, SaaS model, cloud-based models. They won't have that much of assets. It will be asset light model, but their impact will be so high that it would generate revenue potential. Okay, and I think some of them are already planning to tap the market, etc. So I would say I won't be surprised that in next 12 to 24 months, there are some fintechs who come to the market and their valuation is bigger than some of the banks or NBFCs.
Yes.
That's very much possible.
Quite interesting. When obviously you look at these fintechs specifically, there is no doubt about the innovation and the great model which they have developed. How sustainable the business model is?
Well, that depends on company to company because fintech, as I said, it's a very glorified, hype world. Anything which people do of technology in finance becomes fintech.
Right.
But there is a lot of, I would say, genuinity, but there is a lot of Me Too kind of behavior also. So I would say in this space, every company needs to be judged from a different lens.
Okay.
The ideas may be common, ideas may be similar, but then the management, background, bandwidth, relationships, ability to execute. I think ability to execute and prove that it can add value to a customer and can bring efficiency. I think that's a key differentiator.
Okay.
So, it doesn't matter, anybody can call themselves fintech, but, over a period of time, I think there are a lot of tests to be done, a lot of checkpoints to be fulfilled. And today banks are very open to engage with everyone. I don't think this will be the situation 12 to 18 months from now. Banks will, financial institutions and consumers will also become very selective about whom they want to engage with.
So do you believe that, when you say that, do you actually believe that now there is a big gap? Perhaps the fintechs are developing a product at a very fast speed, but when they go to a bank, when they go to a financial institution, they still have those traditional mentality and it takes long time for them to literally collaborate and then integrate and then, engage with the banks and develop that product. Do you think
I would say a slight different view. So 12 to 18 months back, when I used to engage with people, I think fintechs were cribbing about it, that we don't get enough opportunities or we get opportunities and we are not being rewarded or incentivized enough to do it. We are being treated more like a POC companies. Okay. But if I see now banks have matured or the NBFCs have matured enough that actually they wouldn't mind paying for it, but they would like to engage with only the ones who will really truly add value. So the whole cycle, if you see, the maturity curve is coming, which means that earlier it was like crib about the fintech that people are using me for free and they are using the brand name of the banks to go to 5 other players. So it was like more creating a vibes.
Right.
Now it's becoming that bank would say, why should I give you access to my API or data unless something you bring to the table. If you are doing for the first time or second time, if it's a laboratory, if it's a minimum viable product, I am not interested. If you think that it can be really done, because I have already so many I have experimented with, I would like to now contain my funnel of experimentation. I would like to go with the people who are more proven. So that is what could be the different, the way forward it would be.
So you already told me there will be few number of fintechs will rise, and they will be the flag bearer of the industry.
True.
Could you just give me like few points? Who will be those flag bearers of the industry? What will be there with those fintechs, those who will make a difference?
Okay, I think that's very, very valid question. So first of all, in my opinion, the fintechs who have very strong management bandwidth, who are not just there to, provide a solution as a teaser to 2 or 3 banks and then not able to sustain. Scalability is a game.
Right.
See, in financial services industry, especially if you are not scalable, see, there are hundreds of companies, right? So if you are scalable, if you have demonstrated your delivery capabilities, if your solution is robust, it can test the waters or the weathers, I think it is something which will survive.
Absolutely.
It's also regulated industry, so there are too many changes happening. Like you must have seen KYC changes happening. There are data privacy issues coming in, things like that. So it's ever evolving. Every day there is a change.
Yes.
Now fintechs have to comply to all those changes. Because they are touching data part, they are touching underwriting part, they are touching basically the customer KYC part. So those who would be able to sustain that are the ones who would definitely have a better chance.
Right.
Obviously supported by the right amount of funding, the right amount of relationships, but it's all about credentials game.
Right.
You don't need 20 fintechs to provide the same solution.
Absolutely.
You need 2 to provide the same solution to 20 institutions.
Absolutely.
Right? And that's how the world will be.
Looking at the current state of Indian fintechs, where we are compared to Middle East, compared to Africa, compared to China, and compared to developed countries, where is India?
I would say the Indian fintechs have, the good part is that the cost of setting a fintech in India is still very low and the volumes to experiment is much high.
Yes.
But the conversion in the commercial terms is still low because of purchase parity or price parity issues, right? So there are pros and cons. So if you say a fintech in China, obviously they have seen the bigs. They have seen the biggest of the ones who started as a fintech. So they know what is 10 years ahead of them, right? And they are trying to aspire to become that. I think India has not seen that level of fintech revolution to scale. And that's why most of the Indian companies are still figuring it out that, how do I become scalable, sustainable, right? So that is a challenge compared to China. Compared to UK, I would say the maturity of UK fintechs is very high. Okay. It's a highly regulated environment and people have been experimenting with it. There are a lot of challenger banks have come. There are a lot of fintechs who are working. Even P2P lending has been a very, very interesting phenomena there, right? Australia is catching up and I think they are showcasing a lot of fintech talent, but probably it will take some time because it's an isolated, slightly differentiated market. Singapore is doing pretty well because I think they have become a hub they always been a hub.
Yes.
So they have leveraged the best of everything and created that fintech festival. I think Middle East is more of a ground for typical Indian companies or Asian companies to experiment with the solutions and make a business out of it.
Absolutely.
Because many of the fintechs may not be able to make enough money from India. So they need to go. And cost of operation in Middle East will always be cheaper than going to a UK or a US market, right? So I think everyone will have their piece. But I would say it doesn't matter where you belong.
Right.
At the end of the day, what you can become, what is the scale you can reach, and what is the commercial benefit you can derive by expanding and getting that scale. I think that would be the key to the differentiation of success. Yeah.
Interesting, Sachin. That was really comprehensive. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts. Thank you so much for talking to FinBusiness.
Thank you, Apol.
So
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That was Sachin Seth from Ernst & Young, who spoke a lot about the current state of Indian fintechs, and he also gave a perspective on how Indian fintechs are compared to Middle East, Africa, Singapore, and many other countries. Thank you so much for watching FinBusiness.